I'm Paul Merkley, co-founder of Seniors Junction, and today we are talking about music and wellness, which is the reason that I and my co-founder, Dr. Namrata Bagaria, founded this company. It's our reason for doing what we do, and it's a topic that is not clearly understood or well understood. I think I'm speaking to different audiences today. Some of you may be activities professionals and in charge of implementing programs for residents in retirement homes or nursing homes. Others of you may be seniors who are interested in activities you can do to preserve your wellness or enhance your wellness or enhance your retirement, enhance your musical retirement. Still others may be people in the industry who have been curious to figure this subject out. Dr. Bagaria holds a master's in public health from Harvard University. She is a medical doctor and she has a PhD. So someone who is very, very well informed about public health, threats to public health, and what can be done about it. I'm a musician. I hold a PhD in musicology from Harvard University, and I taught as a full-time professor of music at the University of Ottawa for 30 years. And now I'm retired from that and working on music with Seniors Junction. We started out in the COVID era with the worry that social isolation was doing a lot of damage. Social isolation was an important concern before COVID. During COVID, it became a public health emergency. And so we were seeking ways to help with that. There's a meta-study that has been done at Brigham Young University that showed that social isolation, or even just living alone, loneliness, social isolation, and living alone resulted in early onset dementia and early mortality, raised the risk factor of that from 25 to 31%. That's a pretty scary figure. And we thought that we could offer the solution of listening to music in a meaningful way to help that. What do I mean by a meaningful way? I'll get to that in a minute or two. So now we've come out of COVID, and well, for seniors, dementia is still a great danger, a great risk. I have a friend going back to high school, so he's my age, and he said, well, he really has he sees three big risks for himself, three things he's worried about: cancer, cardiovascular disease, and dementia. Of the three, he tells me dementia is the one he worries about most, because you hardly know that you have it, and you live on and on and on and on. It's a terrible disease. It's a nightmare. What is the role of music in wellness? And this is true not just for seniors, but for everyone. Well, in reading about it, we go back to Plato. And I don't apologize for referring to Plato. I know that you're not all interested in philosophy, but it's important to consider. Plato in the Republic wrote two things that interest me. One is that he described the kinds of music he would like to have in his ideal republic. There was a kind that encouraged men to be brave in battle and to continue. And there was a kind that made them more reasonable. Now, we don't know what those kinds were, because whatever evidence we had about that went up in flames when the Library of Alexandria burned down and so much ancient knowledge was lost. So we don't know. But those were his ideas. He also said something I find interesting. If you let me make a country's music, I care not who may make its laws. Now, do we find that an outrageous statement? Think about it for a minute. Those of us who were young adults in the 1960s, would we say that the greater influence on us was the laws of our country, or were people more carried away by the music? And of course the answer is the music. It's the music that shaped that culture, unquestionably. Some of you may remember that we went through a period where there was a company called Muzak that said, well, to a merchant, I can make Christmas any time of year. I can get people to buy your stuff. Just sign up for me. If you let me make a country's music, I care not who may make its laws. So unquestionably, music is a very powerful force. Other writers in ancient Greece talked about incidents in which music stopped crimes in progress, ended wars, did all sorts of fabulous things. Again, it's antiquity, and we don't know what that music might have been like or what they were even thinking of. But it illustrates something for us. So, I did at the university a great deal of what I call community teaching, teaching music to non-music majors. You say, well, why did the guy with a degree from Harvard get doing that? Well, because it was important. It was important. I taught hundreds of students a year that way. Would you rather teach hundreds of students a year or something, or would you rather teach the very few a little bit? I was very glad to teach a great many students and tell them what I understood and show them things and wake up their interest in music. They were always surprised. I taught a lot of courses in film music because often music is in the background of a film and no one is conscious of it or knows what it's doing. And then when you just lift the covers a bit and look and listen to the music and say, well, do you see what it's doing in this scene? It's a revelation. It's a revelation for students and shows again the tremendous power of music. Now you say, this is all well and good. What about that wellness question that you raised? Well, it's a good one. Why do we have no clear direction from scientific experiments? Well, two reasons. One is that the repertoire of music, the different styles and kinds of music available, that is so varied that it's really not possible to do controlled experiments on it. It's just not possible. And the other reason is that the since that is true, the little experiments that have been done, while encouraging, while they do show a positive impact of music, are not designed in a way that really proves much, or if they are undertaken by people who aren't close to music, let's put it that way, often they don't reach the right conclusion. They do silly things. So it's actually up to people who have worked with music a lot to have some experience and explain what we've seen and what seems to work, and a little bit of why. I'm not going to try to burden you with all the whys, because the whys get us into some very interesting but challenging territory to talk about. So we, one of the things we wanted to pilot to see if our ideas worked and how well they worked. And I want to talk about one pilot that we did at a veterans hospital in Ottawa, Canada. It is the leading research hospital on aging in Canada. Aging is in style, everybody's doing it. And it's not only veterans who live there, but that is a place for veterans. So we decided to do a pilot, and it was feasible especially because we knew that at the start we would have some technical things to iron out. We decided that I am based in the Toronto area, and my co-founder Namrata is based in Ottawa. So she was on site, and she said, okay, look, I'm going to make sure that the equipment works. You do Zoom calls from Toronto. I'll make sure that the audio and visual equipment works, and I will pass the microphone here to people so that they can ask questions. So that seemed perfect as an arrangement, and indeed it worked very well, though it was a lot of work for her moving around that room with a microphone and making sure everything worked. And sometimes the internet would go down and she would have to use her own internet. There were problems, but she worked through them. I gave my presentations and I answered questions on the spot, and we kept track of what we saw as the results, and it was very, very interesting. As you can imagine, there was a fair variety of people there following the course. They were interested. And in fact, there was one resident whom the staff had classified as a shut-in because she had not come out of her room in months. And she came out to attend the course. And on the first day, she was socially a little bit awkward with the group. There were minor conflicts. And on the second week, she talked with Namrata, and Namrata learned that this was the first event or presentation or activity that she had felt it worthwhile for her to come out of her apartment. So she wasn't really a shut-in. She was an introvert at a high level. Is that the right term? She was very introverted. But she came, and the second time she came out, she was dressed more appropriately. She spoke politely instead of getting into arguments with the other people attending. It really transformed her to do this. I think we did 8 weeks. And we surveyed people at the beginning. What did you want to get out of it? What did you get out of it? We were very excited, and we could see it was opening things up for them. Some of them went on to make a a film club, so they were going to watch movies on their own after the course ended. All of them had something to say. All of them said they'd gotten a lot out of it. So it was a successful pilot, and we learned a lot from it, and then we had to sit down and think, how could we scale this? How could we do this in other places? Because we wanted to do it in many places. So how would we get over the technical challenges and make it happen? How could it be done? Well, I wanted to note that Namrata was walking around Ottawa a couple of weeks ago. So now maybe 2 years after the course, or a year and a half after the course. And wouldn't you think that the people who attended would remember her first, that she would be in the front of their minds, because after all, she talked to them every week, handed the microphone to them, was always right there on site. But she ran into this lady who had been diagnosed as a shut-in and who wasn't really, and another person who had taken the course. And she was just talking to them, and they both said they were from the Veterans Hospital, and she recognized them, so she didn't say anything. And they said, we had the most remarkable activity a little while back. It was a course on film music, and there was this guy, Paul, and it was all so interesting and all so absorbing. She said, well, do you not remember me? I was there handing you the microphone. No, they didn't. They remembered the subject. They remembered the music. They remembered the film scenes. They remembered how they felt about it. So I'm telling you this to illustrate the importance of the subject, the importance of the activity. Transcends the human contacts that they had. There are indirect and direct benefits to music. An indirect benefit is that it becomes a point of conversation. And so isolation, loneliness decreases. In a residential setting, people talk to each other, have something in common, have an interest in common, speak together. If it's someone aging at home and they're taking our course privately, which is something we do too, again, it gives them things to talk about. I always make sure that we build some intergenerational content into what we offer, because it's very important that people be able to relate to other generations, not just, let's say, seniors relating to seniors, but they should have things they have in common with their grandchildren, let's say. Oh, grandchildren. Grandchildren, it's so special for seniors. I enjoy a lot of activities at a club near where I live, and a lot of the things are done with other seniors. So I talk with them especially at bridge. A lot of bridge. I know those of you who are younger say, bridge, what is that to me? Well, it's a great deal to seniors. And always we ask about each other's grandchildren. And always, if you have to be absent, it's questioned, because that screws up the bridge seating. But if you use the word granddaughter, well, then everything is understood. I said, well, I have to do this with my granddaughter. Oh, that's fine then, Paul, that's fine. You enjoy that. An exception when I don't talk about grandchildren as much is with my Wednesday bridge partner, who is a wonderful man, intelligent and sensitive, and for reasons not at all of his own doing, estranged from his daughter and therefore estranged from his two granddaughters. He doesn't tell many people about that, but one day he said to me, Paul, I have two granddaughters and I will never see them. These bridge games spawn other private bridge games in homes, and often when they see a substitute, they'll call one of us. I was called to substitute for someone recently, and so I got there, and there was a completely different set of men playing bridge. And one of them was very outgoing, and he had suffered a stroke and was well recovered by going into the rehab program. And when he got out of it, his family, his children had essentially staged an intervention, and they brought him to a retirement residence because they thought that was the best thing for him. And he said, well, it was nice when the food was good and it was well appointed and so on, but he said, I feel I'm too young to be here. Other people are 10 years older. And he said, now I'm physically getting around. I've done the rehab work. He didn't want to upset his children by saying that they've done the wrong thing, by putting him there, but he was clearly unhappy about it. I said to him, well, tell me, do you have any children nearby? And he said, it breaks your heart. I have a daughter, but I'm estranged from her. And I said, that is more common than anybody realizes. He said, I've come to know that. So, intergenerational things are very, 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 very important. One thing that everybody does is listen to music, and tastes change because experiences change. And the bottom line is that people start by liking what they know, and they can get past that, but they start by liking what they know and actually being quite insistent about that. So in every course that I curate and we make and put out, I include an intergenerational day or evening so that people can come together. It's easy for me to do because I'm a historian of music, so I can show you that the rumble scene in Leonard Bernstein's wonderful version of Romeo and Juliet, his West Side Story, I can show you that the rumble scene maps right into Michael Jackson's I'm Bad, and that maps right into BTS. And once you can go into BPS, you have the teenagers of today hooked. And then you can do something with your BTS fans who are your grandchildren. Do you see? You can have a common activity. You can take down the barriers between you and have something important to talk about and relate to each other. And I can tell you, if you don't know, I expect you do know, that that is just a wonderful thing. And I'll bet that every senior listening would tell us that if they could have one more quality event with a grandchild, that would be something they would be dying to do. And of course, it works wonders. It works wonders with children too, with daughters and sons. So intergenerational, big, big thing. Now, I just said something important, that people start by liking what they are familiar with and being rather insistent about that, whatever age they are. It's a little bit like trying to get a younger person interested in eating something else. You know, if all they eat is peanut butter and chicken, well, it's going to be a chore, isn't it, to sell that broccoli? But if we want to build a new neural pathway, and trust me, we do. We really do. We don't want that to become limited, fixed, and rigid. That makes what we call a concrete consciousness. If you never get going in a different way inside your brain, then you're going to be a pretty stubborn, concrete person, and that's sad. That's not really living to the fullest. The minute we pay attention to something different, something new, something we haven't thought about, we create a new pathway. Technical term is neuroplasticity. In other words, some flexibility inside your head. So I start with music that people know and like, and I make sure either to tell them something different about it so that they listen differently, and also gradually during the course of the hour or whatever time I'm taking to introduce music in a way that they haven't heard it. A little bit different, a little bit of new, so that by the time they've finished, there is some neuroplasticity there. If I can do it on the Intergenerational Day, that's worth gold, right? If I can take the person who's listening to music of the 1950s and get them to actually listen to a BTS song, well, hey, that's a wonderful thing. A mind is a terrible thing to lose. We've all seen people with dementia, and it is just horrible to think of how much they've lost. And you say, I sure hope I don't get there. I sure hope my family doesn't get there. I sure hope I don't get there and become a burden to my family. We say all those things. How do we avoid it? By neuroplasticity, by making new pathways. Dementia is, one way to think of it, partly a hardware problem and partly a software problem, and the two of them go together. The hardware problem, well, we can see the plaque on parts of the brain. The software problem, the activities, the music, the learning, the exercise, the building of new pathways, which you see turns into something that can get around. You can find a route around the concrete part. And that's worth so very, very much. What music helps best with that? Well, that's individual, because I have to start by getting your interest with something you already know, and then broaden it out a bit by talking, by explaining. I have to take you from Tony Bennett to Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga. So we have an awful lot of repertoire, an awful lot of classes we've made, because there are so many different tastes in music. One of the things that sort of happened to me almost accidentally is I became the conductor of the men's senior choir in my club. These are not great musicians. They're very intelligent, sensitive men. So I was glad to do it. It's not exercising all of my musical expertise by any means, but as an expert on aging, oh, it certainly does. I found out that with an age difference of as little as 8 years, they can have completely different tastes in music. And first couple of rehearsals, mainly people argued about what repertoire they wanted to sing. One of them said, I'd like to sing some ABBA pieces. I said, that's fine, we could do that. Someone else said, I don't like that ABBA. I only like this and that. Well, I don't like your music. And so this was sort of point of controversy right from the beginning. All of them probably within, 25 years at most, but some sharp differences in musical taste. So it's at a point I said, okay, look, we'll come back next week. Each of you pick a song you would like us to do, and we'll do one song by everybody. Oh, well, if he brings an ABBA song, I won't like that. I said, well, Dave, I guarantee you you won't like what the other men bring, because you have told me emphatically that you only like the songs you know already. So yes, it's a guarantee that you won't at first like the songs you haven't sung before. It's guaranteed, but it will do so much for you. There's so much people get out of singing in a choir, but the biggest thing is encountering music that they haven't encountered before. And this was a choir that sang only in unison. And I said, I want you to sing something in different parts, something where you aren't all singing the same notes, something. Oh, they fought with me about that. Why did you have to do that? And at a point, pushed to it, I said, do you not understand? Do you not understand? There is a huge benefit to your having this experience, whether you even perform it or not, but trying it, because it will open up new neural pathways. I can't do anything about preventing dementia or slowing its effects unless somebody is willing to open new pathways, to have some neuroplasticity. Well, that made them be quiet. So I had them sing around. Anybody can sing around. I said, can you sing Row, Row Your Boat? Oh yeah, are you kidding? Well, I said, then you can sing around. If you can sing around, you can sing different notes at the same time and hear that. So finally they agreed to try something, and we did, not to perform it, just to try it. And the beautiful silence when they finished, the thoughtful attitudes, you could hear the pathways in the brains forming. If you let me make a country's music, I care not who may make its laws. I don't care, because it doesn't matter. If they learn something new about the music they like. Somebody did a little musical experiment recently and drew completely the wrong conclusion. It's not their fault. They're probably not musicians. They're some kind of neuroscience people not thinking very hard, I guess. Isn't that terrible to be so critical, but it's true. They took their small group, split them in half. To half, they played only music that was familiar to them, to the other half, music that was unfamiliar, and they wired them up to look for physiological responses. And they said, oh, we see the responses in the group listening to familiar music and not the other group. And we conclude that the impact of music is only with familiar music. And I thought, wow, that's your conclusion. If I were in your research group, I would chew you out. Because the point is, it's not what they were listening to, it's how they were listening. We listen to familiar things in a very accepting, friendly way. We tend to shun unfamiliar things in the way that my granddaughter does when I serve her a vegetable that she doesn't want. So, in order to move people out of the tried and true familiar, which are the old pathways which are fixed, which will not help them, some explanation is required, some context, some demonstration of a concept, which will open up possibilities, which will make some curiosity, which will make new pathways. And this is the reason that Seniors Junction gives courses in music appreciation, because appreciating music is learning something about it, learning something about that music that you didn't know before, that you had not encountered before, or learning something new about the music you took for granted that you knew before. And all of a sudden we get great new pathways and a better life, a better expressive life, more communication, curiosity, satisfaction, an expanded palette of listening, and neuroplasticity, some flexibility instead of the concrete. Okay, I've gone on a long time. I am Paul Merkley, retired professor of musicology from the University of Ottawa, fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, holding a PhD in music from Harvard. My co-founder, Dr. Namrata Bagaria, is a medical doctor with a Master of Public Health from Harvard and a PhD. We have done our utmost to make a program that works. That works. And this is making the promise of music that you've all heard about, and you probably all believe that music can be a positive force for wellness. This is how we make it real. I truly hope you will investigate what we have to offer, and it's a lot, whether in a group format or doing it yourself at home or individual. I hope you'll check us out. I hope you'll enjoy our newsletters. I hope you will subscribe. I hope you will like us. And I hope to see you again. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.